When going about entertaining the idea of a multiverse, or at least time travel, most people I see tend to think of grand what-ifs. Things like, we killed Hitler and now everyone has 2 left feet and shits out their pisser, or whatever is going on with the MCU these days. And while that's all well and good fun, I occasionally have moments when I realize, isn't it cool we got clouds? I mean, anything else could have happened. A billion trillion events could have played out differently, but instead, we got clouds. The universe doesn't have a playbook, and frankly neither do humans, by the way. We're all just doing our very best to pretend we aren't scared little children in trench coats. Sure, there's physics and such, but nothing dictates it had to happen this way, not that I know of. The universe doesn't owe you normalcy or security or a sense of understanding or, God forbid, mercy. As a collective, we are beginning to learn we truly don't understand anything about the mysterious and wondrous world we inhabit, and it is quite a scary realization to have. But hey, at least we have clouds. And there's a world without them. But Mr. Erotic Video Man, I hear you ask, how can you prove that? Well, thankfully there's a simple, with a big asterisk, solution. Monkeys! Have you heard of the infinite monkey theorem? No? Essentially, the idea is that if you give a monkey infinite time and then you lock it in a room with a typewriter, it will eventually type out the entire works of Shakespeare. You will also, theoretically, of course, have a very sad monkey. The thought process is that if there's a possibility at all, no matter how slim, of something happening, given infinity, it will happen. No matter how ridiculous the thought of a monkey typing out Shakespeare by pure chance and probably a few broken typewriters is, it will happen if given enough time. Infinity proves everything. The same idea, for your information, logically applies in my mind to banging your head against a wall for a literal infinite amount of time, which theoretically should lead, eventually, to every single atom in your head simply missing every atom in the wall, therefore allowing you to pass right through. This was your biannual reminder and subsequent disclaimer that I am not a physicist! Anyway, I recently realized the same principle applies, to a degree, if you have an infinite amount of monkeys and ample time to write Shakespeare. If a Shakespearean poem could be written in 20 minutes, one of the monkeys would have done so if given that time. In fact, not just one, but an infinite amount of monkeys, because infinity is fun like that. Yet another unfathomable amount of monkeys wrote something entirely new, different, and revolutionary, completely by chance. Do you see where I'm going with this? Our universe is very possibly infinite, and clearly there's been enough time for life to emerge, for humanity to build upon itself and create fun little intricate societies, and also commit terrible atrocities that will mar our cultural psyche until the end times. Assuming the universe is infinite, it isn't just possible that there's infinite Earths, that matter rearrange itself in infinite amount of ways until every possible thing that could go differently went the same, but it's 100% positively out there. Out there somewhere. The universe is just a monkey banging its head on a typewriter, hoping to write Shakespeare. If this is true, then there are an infinite number of yous watching an infinite number of this video made by an infinite number of me's, all right now at this exact moment. They are thinking the same thoughts, they are practically breathing the same air, and their hearts are beating in tune with yours. Everything you do, they do at the exact same time. It's an infinity meter of real, conscious human beings. Why don't you say hello? At the same time, there are an infinite amount of different us's with slight variations. Some of them just deviated now. They breathed a little out of sync, or their heart skipped a beat, or a car crashed through their fucking window. Others are dyed a permanent shade of red, probably, and even others still are underwater, watching a video where I describe a world where water is blue instead of green, and we all breathe air and there's these big puffy things in the sky I've dubbed clouds. Because isn't it cool we got clouds? Honestly, I think they're quite a creative concept. Titanic balls of swirling ice that appear so warm and fluffy and inviting, but psych, they're actually wet, cold, and gross. I feel a below-the-belt dig at an X coming on. There's a world where they don't have clouds, and instead they have double the taxes and half the dopamine. Because really anything is possible, and as much as I like to think of the little differences, it is quite fun to take a gander at what could be. If the universe is infinite and history is retold in an ineffable amount of ways, then there's a world exactly like ours. Not different at all, except at the beginning of every single advert, it is customary to play a 3.23.5 second blurb of a specific shade of purple, hashtag E50ED5 to be exact, before any other message can be displayed. They do this because 20 years ago, when television was first invented, along with the sudden realization of all there is to life, John Gretchenstein was high as balls whilst editing the first ever publicly broadcasted piece of visual media, and accidentally left in 3.25.5 seconds of that shade of purple in that final cut. There's another world where they do it just because they fucking can. There's a world where I, at age 8, came up with the brilliant idea to create Amazon, which quickly rose to become the first corporate hyperglomerate, buying out the world governments and subsequently raising me to status of global emperor. Bend before the feet of your corporate overlord, my voice rings over international television on Reckoning Day. Look upon my designs and despair. Heed my war machines as wails and cries. Fear my every word and cling to them like they hold within your very fate. My word is law, my whim is reality. Your gods are dead and I have slain them. Worship the bottom line and grovel beneath it. Rue the day that it falters or fails, for it shall be your heads on a plate if I so please. I would miraculously live for 235 years exactly, and passed on my birthday, a fifth of a second after the direct anniversary of my birth. I had brought peace and prosperity and flying pink dolphins to Earth during my reign, by mercilessly slaughtering anyone who disagreed with that notion. And none of those worlds have clouds. Well, some of them would, actually. An infinite amount of possibilities are only differentiated from them by the very fact that they have clouds, but you know what I mean. There's a world without pain. There's a world without suffering and anger. There's a world full of bliss we can't even begin to comprehend. There's a world where Hitler was never born, and corruption was never conceived, and every ruler reigned and will reign with justice and kindness. There's a world without breakups, where every person is every other's soulmate, and they all live in perfect synchronous harmony. There's a world without loss and sadness and malice and war. But I bet they don't have clouds. Our world is so flawed and terrible and corrupt, a joke among the cosmic community, full of hardship and hatred and disgusting practices only the most malignant and depraved of creatures could ever entertain. That's us, so dedicated to problems we make up to distract ourselves that we ignore those glaring right in front of our faces. We focus on the wrong things. We value efficiency and low costs over human life. We would make our heavenly siblings across the multiverse retch at the sight of us. Why can't we be like them? These worlds in my imagination, those perfect universes flawed only by their aggravating altruism. Why can't we be better? Why can't we live in a world of peace and prosperity, of equality and equity, rather than this hellhole of perversity, corruption, and hate? What is wrong with us that we can't be like that? Why aren't we like those perfect worlds and glimmering utopias? Why don't we have flying cars and world peace? Why won't we just stop fucking killing ourselves and realize it's all futile and that we need to work together to make a point to any of it? And why don't we open our eyes to see how expansive the universe is and resolve to explore it together in peace? Why are we like this? Why are we horrible? And why is this humanity so resolute to cannibalize itself? But at least we have clouds. Isn't it cool that we have clouds? Aren't we lucky to have clouds? Aren't we lucky to have this at all? Not just clouds, but the world as the way it is. Yes, it's dark and scary and not altogether whole, but it's a world that can change. It's a world that has changed, that's changed so much, so very much, and can continue to. Even if the universe isn't infinite and the multiverse isn't real, and we really are the only instance of us to ever exist in anything because possible timelines are only possibilities and not realities, then isn't that beautiful? Doesn't that make us so unbelievably special and unique? Even if the universe isn't infinite, it is big, and there's likely life out there on some barren, rocky, and harsh exoplanet, just starting out, just beginning to make their way in the big, wide, cruel universe. And they don't have clouds. They don't have the history we do. They don't have the effort of billions before, of the brilliant and innovative, of those who just worked a normal working man's life, of those who wanted to do more but never got the chance. They don't have coffee or chocolate ice cream or blue skies and oceans of trillion water. They don't have the luck we did to be born on such a beautiful and bountiful planet, with such wonderful and creative minds capable of inquiry and questioning at all. And most of all, they don't have clouds.